Welcome to Own Your Heart Health. I'm Dr. Regina Druz, your holistic cardiologist. This week, we will dive into common heart health concerns, uncovering root causes, and unpacking scientific discoveries and controversies. The information provided does not constitute medical advice. Please contact your healthcare practitioner before making any changes that may impact your health. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 15. I'm really excited today because today we're starting on something really important. We are going to discuss an amazing program that we're doing at the Holistic Heart Centers called Statin Overprescribing Solution, or S.O.S, and some of the concepts that go into this program. Now, this is only part one. It's going to be a recurrent series. It's going to be a deep dive on the LDL cholesterol and HDL cholesterol, inflammation, genetics, digital biomarkers, nutritional strategies, supplements. Everything is going to come to the surface and be discussed. But before I am going to go forward with today's show, I really want to thank all of our subscribers, because I did not know, nor have I even imagined that in about, just a few of these episodes, this is only episode 15, we have about 1,200 subscribers in almost 20 countries. And so I am profoundly thankful for your support. And if you have questions or some specific topics that you want me to address on the show, please let me know, because I'm always inspired by what people are asking. I'm inspired by my patients, by the issues they're facing, and, delighted at giving them strategies that could help them to achieve their health goals. So what I would like to do today is to introduce the concept of age proofing, right? So age proofing is an interesting concept. You may not have heard about it before. I sort of invented age proofing when I started to look a little bit and then a lot into longevity space. And, longevity space is very undefined, right? There are multiple companies, multiple physicians, multiple tricks. There are biohackers, there are bioslackers, as you know who those are. Maybe you're one of those, or all of us on any given day could be a biohacker and a bioslacker in some other domains, right? We're human. We're not necessarily doing everything perfectly every single day, and that's totally okay. But the longevity space, to me, as someone who has over 20 years of experience in cardiovascular medicine, in functional medicine, in integrative medicine, somebody who is also a digital health tech enthusiast, forging into AI and machine learning, I can tell you that, unfortunately, most of the longevity space biohacks are really missing the forest for the trees, right? Very often you could say, well, use peptides, use hormones, come get a DEXA scan, come get a whole body MRI. Each of those potentially has a role, but you need to understand what's going on with you specifically with regard to your heart and brain health, because you may have the best muscle mass of your age group and the best bone density of your age group. But if your heart isn't pumping, or it's not pumping well, or is surrounded by inflammatory fat, guess what? You are much older than your muscle or bone age potentially implies. And so I want to introduce the concept of age proofing so that you understand how we leverage this concept in our Statin Overprescribing Solution program, because after almost 25, not even 20, 25 years of cardiology, just shy of 25 years of cardiology by a year at this point, I can tell you that after a quarter century of cardiovascular practice and differentiating practice and looking to advance and embracing a lot of the new opportunities and new skill sets, I can tell you that aging is primarily cardiovascular. vascular, right? This is why we talk about atherosclerosis, right? Arteries, sclerosis. Well, you know what that is. That's, aging of the arteries, right? Something is sclerotic, something is getting older. And so this process of atherosclerosis is a process that occurs in the heart arteries, is the process that occurs in the brain arteries. It occurs in the kidney arteries, leg arteries, various arteries, right? And we need our arteries so that we can stay alive and perfuse our organs, deliver needed nutrients, oxygen, take the waste away, dispose of it. So, atherosclerosis, the aging of the arteries, is the paradigm of the aging process. And so, if we truly want to de age ourselves or de risk ourselves or potentially slow down or even reverse some of the aging phenomena, we need to start at the core of where the aging process shows itself. And the main areas where the process shows itself is your heart. And of course, related to the heart is your brain. So everything that we may do, hormones, peptides, supplements, diet, workout, all sorts of investigations and all sorts of interventions. The first question that you need to ask yourself, does it have an impact on my blood vessels? Making it very simple, because the impact on the heart goes beyond blood vessels. There is a heart muscle, of course, and we're going to talk about it in subsequent episodes about something I called fat heart syndrome, a really serious issue that a lot of people are facing. And we now have certain tools or opportunities actually to reverse the consequences of the fat heart syndrome. I'm seeing a lot of patients with elevated cholesterol, right? So this is Statin Overprescribing Solution episode. We're going to talk a little bit about elevated cholesterol, what to do about it, and how to put it all together. So when you are kind of getting these signals, right? Your blood pressure may be higher variable, your cholesterol beginning to trend higher. Maybe it was high your entire life, and now you're aware that this may actually be a problem, or you gaining weight, or you have palpitations, or potentially developing issues related to the impact of these things on your heart or even your brain. You have to ask yourself, how do I go about reversing it? How do I focus cardiovascularly and optimize my cardiac health? And this is where the age proofing comes in, because this isn't about just, picking out one vertical and say, okay, I have good cholesterol, I have bad cholesterol, which, by the way, is completely wrong, because these binary designations of cholesterol are very much outdated, and there's been a lot of great data, and a lot of experts in lipidology are moving away from these binary sort of designations. And we'll talk about why this classification system of good versus bad cholesterol is wrong in subsequent statin overprescribing solution episodes. But today, let's sort of get a big picture. Right? Let's get a big picture. And I want to quickly share my screen with you so that we can actually get that big picture and kind of understand what is it that I am talking about. So I'm talking about age-proofing your heart. Well, what is age-proofing, right? We get older, and obviously our organs, including our heart and our systems, they will get older. And I can tell you that as a seasoned cardiologist, I can actually see the age-related changes in the heart when I do some of the cardiac imaging studies, like an echocardiogram, because you could see how the heart sort of turns with age, changes its shape a little bit. And, I can always tell a young heart from an older heart. Even if I don't know a patient's age, I could tell you this is a young heart and this is a much older heart. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Regina here. I know there are contradictory opinions about nutrition for heart health and longevity. Discussion often gets heated and confusing. There are those who push for low fat, low cholesterol. And then there are fans of a ketogenic diet. There are many anti-meat voices as well, suggesting vegan or vegetarian style of eating. With all the chatter out there on what and how to eat, my team and I decided to create a tool for patients, medical professionals to clear the clutter. It is called Holistic Heart University, and it provides on-demand courses, nutrition and lifestyle resources, information on supplements to make it easier to understand how to make healthy choices for your heart. I'm especially proud of our open office hours for program patients and the Q&A feature where you get to ask your individual questions and put us in the hot seat. Head out to the show notes for the link and use my special promo code to get a huge 20% off on our annual health and wellness subscription. The code is OWNER20, and I'll see you in the office hours. Let's think about conceptually what the holistic cardiovascular medicine actually is, because a lot of the patients that come to us to holistic heart centers, this is what they want. They want an integrative cardiology approach. They want a holistic cardiology approach. Sometimes they're calling it functional medicine cardiology or just functional cardiology. And so let's define exactly what that actually is. And let's start peeling the layers and explain here how you can age-proof yourself holistically. Now, if you're listening to us on the Apple or Spotify or any other podcasting platform of your choice, I encourage you to actually watch this episode on YouTube, because I have some slides that I'm sharing with you. And if you stick to the end, and this is not going to be a particularly long episode, you will actually be able to get a little gift, a little freebie, something that I really enjoy giving you. And I will demonstrate what it looks like and help you make sure that you can get access and you can get use of it. I think that will be very useful to you with regard of just learning, getting more information, and actually getting information from the podcast episodes that you can potentially use to ask the right questions of your physician, to put yourself on a path to really achieve, health optimization, wellness, and vitality. So with regards to what this age-proofing concept actually involves, well, you know me, I've been at it for a while. You know that I am the founder and CEO of Holistic Heart Centers, and I practice as an integrative and holistic cardiologist using my functional medicine expertise and my interest in digital health and artificial intelligence to really bring solutions to our patients. And so holistic cardiovascular medicine is about healing the hearts on fire, right? Every one of us at one point in our life or the other, maybe our parents, maybe our significant others, sisters, brothers, friends, will have a situation where for one reason or the other, the heart is on fire, right? The heart is so central to our health that it's impossible to go through life and never have a situation when your heart isn't really affected by the aging process. And so it is important to understand what can various interventions do for you, right? And, I like this little cartoon because, the person here says, it's easy to basically get my vitamins. I get vitamin C from coffee, vitamin D from donuts, and vitamin B from bagels, right? Now, the reason that I'm putting this cartoon over here is because that's what I see a lot of patients doing, right? They're like, oh, I'm doing this diet to lower my cholesterol, lower blood pressure. I'm doing, these supplements for the same, maybe cholesterol, blood pressure, coronary disease. I'm fasting this much. I'm eating that many carbs. I'm, taking these drops, so this is not going to take you to goal, right? You need to understand what are the benefits, risks, and opportunities in medicine nowadays so that you can leverage advances to really change your health. It's not piecemeal, vitamin C from coffee, vitamin B from bagels. It is really an opportunity to improve your health. So all of you know conventional medicine. In conventional medicine, my fellow cardiologists, they excel at medications, they excel at procedures, they excel at complex interventions, emergency services. In traditional cardiology is a remarkable opportunity for patients who have acute or end stage reasons to use it, right? So acute reason would be someone unfortunately has a heart attack and they need help. Someone has exacerbation of heart failure and they need help. Someone has atrial fibrillation and they potentially are a good atrial fibrillation ablation candidate. So let's find the best facility and the best skilled set of hands and the environment where they can get the best result, right? And it really came into focus for me recently because I asked one of my friends and colleagues who is a very seasoned, very experienced, wonderful cardiologist with both academic and private practice experience. And I asked their opinion of carotid intima media thickness, and I'll explain what it is. And my colleague said, well, I do check it from time to time. I check calcium score from time to time. And, on the show, we talked about calcium score at least twice. And if you don't know where that episode is, check out Three Men Walk Onto a Golf Course, because, little spoiler here, I can tell you that three men are back. We have more information and it will be in the additional episodes when three men return to the golf course, right? So that we can discuss the information on calcium scores. But my friend says, well, I don't see a whole lot of value in those techniques because all I know how to do is to lower LDL cholesterol, right? So this has been a main road where cardiology has traveled for decades, this cholesterol-centric hypothesis. And we know now from the mainstream cardiology literature, from the leading investigators, including the ones in some of the most esteemed academic institutions, such as Harvard Medical School, Dr. Paul Ridker, Dr. Peter Libby, giants in cardiology, we know from their work that cholesterol-centric hypothesis is outdated. Does cholesterol play a role in atherosclerosis? Absolutely. So if you really are under the impression that some of the internet chatter that cholesterol doesn't matter for my arteries, please stop listening to this because it's simply not the reality. It's a myth. Cholesterol does matter for your arteries. We have population level data, but more importantly, with the integrative cardiology approach, we can get your level data, N of 1, and tell you if cholesterol is mattering for your arteries and how much and what you can actually do about it. But my friend says, all I know how to do is to lower LDL. So what is really the point of, being a little fancier and going for those other tests? And I'm going to argue with that and say that there is a tremendous opportunity that is missed by conventional cardiology, because when we apply a functional medicine lens to it and we look from the systems biology approach, we are able to find what's called MLF, modifiable lifestyle factors. And we use what's called the ATM model, which stands for antecedents, triggers, and mediators. And we put together, using more advanced testing, so-called atherogenic lipid phenotype, or ALP. Now, it sounds like a mouthful, so if you want to just refer to it as a lipid type and say, Dr. D, I have high LDL, what can integrative cardiologist tell me about my lipid type? That will be easier for you to understand, right? And this is where the opportunity lies, right, in this personalization. And it's not necessarily a super new thing because we know from the data perspective, and right now, there is tremendous growth in artificial intelligence applications and it requires a lot of data acquisition. We know from the data perspective that there is a lot of value at looking at large groups of people, really deriving population health insights and applying population health insights to manage a higher risk subgroup of individuals in a population. But there is also something called small data, which means N of one. And when we accumulate these individual experiences and we start pulling data together, we start stringing it together, we actually begin to see the patterns that are just below the surface. And this is exactly what we do at Holistic Heart Centers. We use something called HeartWell Toolkit, as well as specific cardiac imaging to really understand your atherogenic, means generating in the arteries, lipid phenotype, right? So, or lipid type, or even vascular type if you want. And everything else that you do, whether it's, traditionally integrative techniques like acupuncture, meditation, perhaps what's typically is known as complementary medicine, maybe some sort of massage or muscle manipulation, all of these things have to matter if they are valuable for your atherogenic lipid phenotype, right? So at the core of our strategy to age-proof yourself is to slow down or regress progression of atherosclerosis, right? This is the core tenet of age-proofing. If you can't slow down or reverse progression of atherosclerosis, the impact of multiple factors on your arteries, you are not going to be in a good place age-wise, because this is, our system as it's getting older is accruing additional imbalances and damage. We are trying to walk this back. So we need holistic cardiovascular medicine because it pulls together all these different approaches. It is a comprehensive, whole person way to really achieve precision and personalization. And precision is what actually is the issue, and personalization, how this issue may be reversed in your case. So please stop listening to, all the internet chatter. I'm not calling out anyone in particular. I'm not going to engage in diet wars or, loud shouting matches, because, there is a group of cardiologists who say LDL must be as low as you can go. That is not true. We're going to have an episode that is going to go into the pros and cons of lowering LDL, and to what point and at what cost. There is a other group of health practitioners who say LDL doesn't matter. It's really not playing a role in atherosclerosis. That is also not true, because we have data that shows that LDL is a surrogate marker of other forces that reflect your lipid universe. We call it lipidome, and it does play a role in atherosclerosis. The question is, what role does it play, and what role does it play in you in particular, and what you can do about it? So we are looking for this precision and personalization at the control of the vascular aging process as the age-proofing strategy. And why do we do this? We do this because we need this approach to stay alive. Despite all the wonderful, phenomenal advances of traditional cardiology that could rescue heart muscle with a couple of stents, that could replace the valves now without open heart surgery. Just think about it. We can now replace the valves without open heart surgery for a lot of patients, really giving them so much of a better option than the heart surgery used to be. Despite all of this, the cardiovascular disease continues to be the leading cause of death for both men and women. It is true in the United States, it is true in Europe, and it is true in developing countries, whether it's Southeast Asia, Africa. We are seeing this time and time again. And here in the United States alone, if, for example, one of every three deaths, and statistics on this is always a bit behind because it requires kind of accruing of data and a lot of computation, is actually caused by cardiovascular disease. And there are simple strategies, but they're not so simple to execute unless you want to go medication route. There are simple strategies to really lower this burden, but the statistics is absolutely horrendous with regard to cardiovascular disease, right? We have a situation where we have patients who had initial heart attack. A lot of them will actually have another heart attack. We have patients who could potentially lower the impact through some fairly simple techniques, and yet this actually is not happening. And you know that every 30 seconds, someone actually dies from heart disease or stroke. And this is really terrible. And slightly more often, every 25 seconds, somebody has a coronary event, right? A heart attack essentially, or an MI. And so 500,000 of people a year will actually have another heart attack after their first one. So this is not trivial. The numbers are huge. And we're here, if we truly want to prevent this, we have to take control early. So how do we do it, right? Remember how I said there's precision and personalization. And a big part of what I'm describing here is part of our statin overprescribing solution. And why am I harping on statins so much? I use statins in my practice, and a lot of other cardiologists do. But I believe that we should personalize what we do with statin and non-statin alternatives by looking at a person's atherogenic lipid phenotype or lipid type and giving them the strategies that allow them to use lifestyle interventions first so that they can either avoid or lower the impact of these medications, right? Statins work, and we know that the lowering of cholesterol in general, most studies were done with LDL cholesterol and some inflammatory markers. There were some studies were done with something called ApoB. And again, in subsequent statin overprescribing solutions, we're going to talk about the differences in all these markers. Should you be running and asking your doctor to get these huge lipid profiles, or can you actually get enough information from a basic lipid panel just as the first step to understand what your lipid type is, right? So what we do is that we pull together multiple resources, and we understand that our patients in many ways are consumers. They're shopping around for the best strategy that will allow them to make important differences in their health. And with Google and internet and AI-enabled search right now, there's and telemedicine, there is Uberization of healthcare, right? We want answers now. We are taking advantage of the fact that genetic sequencing, even medical grade genetic sequencing, has become fairly inexpensive. And we now understand more about various biomarkers, whether those are advanced lipid profile biomarkers, toxic load biomarkers, oxidative stress biomarkers. We understand so much more about these so that we can leverage this information to really personalize an intervention for a patient. We also have an enormous opportunity with digital biomarkers or digital diagnostics and therapeutics, right? We can track your body composition. We can track your blood pressure. We can track your heart rate variability, not just, for the fun of it, but actually leveraging it to make meaningful changes in your health, right? And some patients are sort of bypassing the medical system. They're doing it by themselves because there's mistrust of conventional medicine. People are now aware that there is something called the paradox of health, where in general, people are not very happy with medical care because it's not really addressing a lot of acute needs, like trauma or heart attack or, infectious disease. Most people really may not have such an event or maybe had it once and they moved on, but they want an opportunity to really address the chronic health issues. And honestly, actually feel better. Just yesterday, I met a patient who said that they were doing everything they could to lower their cholesterol. And there was a lot of frustration because there was a lot of deprivation, there was a lot of restriction. And this patient's family actually has a significant cardiac history. And so here's this person who is in their 50s really trying to make an impact on themselves. And despite their best efforts, they're failing at it. And, not only is frustration an issue here, but also a risk, because how long will this go on, right? The longer you go on with unmitigated risk to your arteries, the greater the degree of damage will be, right? Not to harp again on the LDL cholesterol, but we will talk in some of the Statin Overprescribing Solution episodes about LDL years, right? The duration of the exposure to elevated cholesterol and what it actually means, And so a lot of our patients, this is what they want. They want this comprehensive, holistic approach that is more focused on them. But it's not going to be like Starbucks on every corner, even though we have some companies in the space that are sort of trying to make it like Starbucks, just come in and, order this concoction, and this is your concoction. We're going to make it look fancy. To really make a difference and age-proof your arteries and either reverse or regress, stabilize your atherosclerosis, one, that is work, right? This is not some sort of recipe. This is actually work that is based on deep understanding what are the root causes in your case. So this is what our patients are looking for when they come to us, and they could select as many as they want. And you could see that majority of our patients are worried about their heart and vascular health. And the second most common one is wellness and vitality. And this is super important because wellness and vitality in many ways are synonymous with longevity, right? Not only with you living longer, but with you living better, right? So people talk about lifespan, and very often longevity discussions are focused on increasing the lifespan, but the most important longevity discussion has to be focused on increasing the health span. And I'll show you, or at least I'll allude how we measure health span in your case, because cardiovascular system is remarkable. It's actually giving us an opportunity to understand what your health span is right now. And as you go through a personalized plan, we can remeasure it and tell you, is it improving or not? Right. And so this is a remarkable feature of cardiovascular system because it lends itself to all these measurements. And of course, aging, other parameters of aging that very often our patients look at, some loss of vitality, slowing in terms of cognitive function, some of the muscle aches or pains, weight gain or weight loss resistance. You could see that these are pretty close. And then, of course, some patients already know that, a lot of the things that happen in the middle-aged adulthood that does affect the coronary arteries and the heart, not just the coronary arteries, all the arteries and the heart in general is related to hormonal balance. And some of them may have even tried hormonal supplementation, but hadn't really reached the result that they wanted to reach. So our program called Fit New Genes program, and it creates a sustainable practice model, whether we practice it or a specialty doctor practices it or a primary care doctor practices it. This is what we call functional integrative therapeutics based on genetics, environment, nutrition, exercise, stress and sleep modulation. And this is kind of our overarching philosophy that we have to look at person's genetics. We have to understand the impact of their environment. We have to understand understand in terms of nutrition and supplementation, how they can position themselves. We have to assess the impact of exercise and do the right exercise for them. And of course, stress and sleep modulation is a big component. We also focus on emotional health and on spirituality, but to keep this slide a little bit simpler, I didn't put these things onto the list. Hi everyone, it's Dr. Regina here. Many of my colleagues and I are noticing patients coming to us with self-ordered blood tests. When this trend started to gain momentum, I thought it would benefit many patients. After all, who doesn't want more access to health testing? However, I see that self-ordered labs often lead to more confusion and frustration for our patients. Patients are coming in with a pile of labs, and sadly, they're not better off for it. This is why we at Holistic Heart Centers have launched HeartWell Toolkits, a curated collection of blood and genetic markers that one can get at home, focused on heart and brain health, gives you all the data you need to make informed and actionable health decisions. The toolkits can be ordered at our shop on holisticheartcenters.com. You can find the link in the show notes. Use the code TESTING10 to get 10% off and free shipping. So our program, and when we run this Statin Overprescribing Solution, which is a type of Fit New Genes program specific to patients who have elevated cholesterol and either wish to avoid or reduce the statin medications or potentially find alternatives that improve their lipids but also improve their cardiovascular risk, we ask two simple questions, right? Does this person need to get rid of something? And these are, kind of standard functional medicine questions, whether it's toxic allergens, infections, maybe it's poor diet, maybe it's poor stress, maybe it's terrible relationships. I once convinced a patient to actually rent a small studio next to his place of work because he was commuting nearly 3 hours each way. So that's 6 hours on the road for a job that he had to keep because he was about to retire from this position and there was no reason, to change to a different position. He was within a year or so of retirement. And so there were so many health issues. This patient was going into heart failure. His heart muscle gave out because, to really mitigate the stress of this commute, first of all, he had no time to exercise, he had no time to control his diet. He started drinking a little bit or a lot every night. And so his heart muscle, when he was seeing me, was in the range function-wise where one needs a defibrillator. And I said, okay, we have an opportunity here, right? We have an opportunity here to reverse this. No guarantees, but let's reverse this. And I'm so happy to see him. It's been over 5 years, and we had a sustained reversal of this heart muscle dysfunction. He is on tiny bit of medications, and everything else was done through lifestyle modification. In fact, we even reversed things that I didn't think would be reversible because he had a chronic infection in his bones called osteomyelitis, and he was basically on years and years and years of antibiotics. This is what it was taking to kind of keep this infection at bay. And through the integrative cardiology approach, holistic cardiology approach based on functional medicine, this infection actually healed, and he was able to come off antibiotics after almost 2 decades of using them. So it was such a huge win, to really give this person an opportunity to live a healthier life, right? And so unlike traditional cardiology, which sort of looks at everything and kind of, designates each own little bin, right? So this is heart failure, this is women's health, this is coronary artery disease, then there's something called preventive cardiology, or this is arrhythmia management, or this is, pre or after the procedure. We look, as you already heard, much more comprehensively, right? With our Fit New Genes program, we check genetics, we check advanced biomarkers. We look at metabolism. We look at microbiome. We look at toxic loads, and in many ways, stress, sleep, spirituality, and what you can do to really optimize yourself. So how in practice this age proofing your heart and your health, because you had seen from what I just said already that it's not just your heart or your brain, it's there are actually a lot of other benefits. How does this age proofing strategy works? Because this is a philosophy that we use for our statin overprescribing solution, actually all of our programs. And we always start with knowing the risk estimate. And if you've been listening to my shows, you had seen it already several times, and I'm going to show it to you again. The tools that I'm going to show you are available in the public domain. They're free. If you have the information, you can just go online, plug in your numbers and get your own risk estimate, right? So this is not really that difficult. And, a little spoiler, we are actually building something that will allow you to do this without searching various internet resources, and will actually guide you to understand what your risk estimate is. And of course, you said, hey, that's probably an AI solution, and you will be right? So this is an AI solution that's coming down the pike that will give you some tools today to really understand in a secure, protected environment without sharing your information with the rest of the world. What is it where you stand and where you can actually be, and potentially how you may get there, right? So for us to help you to get there, we pull information from blood markers, from genetics. We use imaging studies such as coronary artery calcium scores, depending on those, CT angiograms as well. And again, we'll talk about the role of CT angiograms as part of the statin overprescribing solution S.O.S series. And we'll look at vascular age. And we're going to have a special episode devoted to vascular age so that you can understand its value. And unfortunately, it's not something which is easily available in mainstream cardiology, but it can be, right? It's not such a difficult thing to provide. And of course, we use digital biomarkers. We use digital biomarkers to really give us a window of opportunity to understand where are you with regard to these important metrics that, remember how I said, we are able to tell you what your health span is, and we're able to tell you, is it improving, staying the same, or deteriorating, right? We want our lifespan to be really based on our health span, because if you're healthy, you most likely will live longer, right? And at the very end, this is what people call the squaring of the curve, right? You'll be in great health until the very end, when your health sort of drops, and and you pass away, hopefully in peace in your own bed at home. But the point is that we want to maximize your years where your health span allows you to be you, to travel, to take care of your kids, to take care of your grandkids, to thrive in your profession, to read, to educate yourself. We all had seen those people, maybe some of you have a relative who say, oh, they were sharp until their 90s. In my family, my great grandmother passed away at 102 because she already had osteoporosis. And unfortunately, she fell, she broke her hip. And, where we lived at the time, there were very few care opportunities, and unfortunately she passed away. My grandfather, who had Alzheimer's, passed away at 96, almost 97. So there are some good longevity genes. But the heartbreaking part of my grandfather was that for the past 20 years of life, he wasn't really himself. He was mildly demented. He didn't really need memory care, but it wasn't him. It wasn't the person who I remembered as a little girl, and even as an older, or young woman, who was full of energy and vitality and exercise, did his army barbell workout every single day. It wasn't him anymore. So those last 20 years were not the best years of his life, and that shouldn't be the case. So we pull all of this together. Now, remember how I said you need to know your risk estimate. So this is why This is something called Atherosclerotic Cardiovascular Disease Risk Estimator. It's available online. You don't have to go to this form. You can just type in risk estimator for cholesterol and it will pop up. It's from the American College of Cardiology. Now, there's been a revision to some of these risk estimators, and this is why we're building a tool that allows a person to look at multifaceted risk estimates, and they differentiate themselves all the time. The more recent iteration that included a lot of information, a lot of people, right? So this is this big data approach when we're looking at populations of 1 million people or 1 million people plus. There is something called prevent score. And so also in a public domain, and of course you can use it. And of course, my personal favorite continues to be multi-ethnic study of atherosclerosis or MESA score, because it lends itself so well to you understanding the impact of all these important variables, such as cholesterol, family history, blood pressure, on your vascular age. Now, of course, that requires that we put in a variable for vascular age. And that, of course, in this particular study is a coronary artery calcium, because we know an expected range of coronary artery calcifications and the likelihood of people having a score higher than 0. Now, 0 implies that you don't have calcification in the coronary arteries in each age group, right? Based on age and gender. And we know that younger patients, and there's been some studies coming, for example, from Denmark that showed us that younger patients, and it just makes sense biologically, may not have high calcium scores, but they may have soft plaques. And this is why, at Holistic Heart Centers, we always look at vascular age, even in younger patients. We use something called carotid intima media thickness, or CIMT, and we're going to have a separate episode on vascular age. But just remember this little, abbreviation CIMT. And this is what my colleague, right, my friend who is a cardiologist said, I'm not sending for CIMT often because I really don't know what to do beyond just lowering LDL cholesterol. Well, at the Holistic Heart Centers, we know what to do beyond just lowering LDL cholesterol. And we also are able to tell you if the LDL cholesterol is a culprit in you and how much of a culprit it is, and what other things you're not looking at that are actually driving coronary disease or atherosclerosis, a more global phenomena of vascular aging. We do this very often with a home-based testing opportunity called HeartWell Toolkit. And as part of the show notes, you can see if there is a link. Sometimes we run discounts on HeartWell Toolkits, so that could be very impactful for you. The HeartWell Toolkit is essentially a well-positioned, curated collection of blood and genetic markers that allows us, and you get it at home, it's a finger stick test and a cheek swab. It allows you to actually get an assessment with regard to your atherogenic lipid phenotype or lipid type, because this lipid type is a reflection of what's going to happen or is happening in your arteries, right? So yes, there are a lot of companies out there that, give you access to laboratory markers. They check like a lot of markers in all sorts of different places. What I can tell you is that most of these markers are not really making a difference for an individual, because you need to know specific markers that are related to your vascular health, and you need to know the genetics behind it so that you understand which lifestyle interventions are likely to give you that core improvement opportunity, slow or reverse vascular aging. And that's what age proofing is all about, right? So we also obviously use the digital devices, and these are some of the companies that we use, but we're not limited to these companies. We use digital devices such as blood pressure cuffs and body composition scales and other additional digital biomarkers to really understand more in depth where you are metabolically, where you are hormonally, where you are in terms of your stress, sleep, resilience, because these are all absolutely some of the most impactful levers that we can push to really age-proof you, right? And so part of this process involves checking your biological age and the rate of aging. This is a fascinating new area. And, please refer to my prior show with Ryan Smith, who is actually the CEO and co-founder of True Diagnostics, because that's the test that we use very heavily with regards to understanding the biological age and the organ age. There is a lot of interesting information about biological clocks. Now, so again, you may go online and see that there are so-called biological age estimators. Estimation is nice, but why would you guess when you can test? And so testing for biological age using research that has been validated and continues to be validated in reputable places such as Harvard University and Yale University has been our approach. And this is why we use True Diagnostic tests, and pretty soon we'll be using additional testing for age-related metabolic disruptions to really give you a estimation, precise estimation where you are now. And this is part of the Healthspan, because we know we can shift this, right? We had seen this shift in our patients. We know how to do it. So there is no guessing here. This is all test. And this is just an example what some of these biological clocks look like. They are giving you a statistical probability. It doesn't mean that, all of these diseases are present in every single person. No, but they're just giving you a statistical probability. This is a measure of your health span, right? And this is what one can modify. The unhealthy behaviors modified in a negative direction by increasing the risk. And of course, healthy behaviors modified in a positive direction. Personalized, actionable steps that we leverage at Holistic Heart Centers, modified in the right direction for you. And so what I wanted to do here is that we're coming toward the end of this episode. And if you stuck through the end, I really appreciate it very much. And so I want to reward you because I want to share a very specific resource with you. Now, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other audio platforms, please look for a link in the show notes. If you are on YouTube, it's even simpler. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and the link will be sent to you directly. And so here, what I'll share with you is a secret resource that I only keep available to members of our Holistic Heart University community. It's actually a free resource. You don't need to be a paid member to get access, but you do need to subscribe to the YouTube channel in order to get access to this resource. And this is what it looks like. This is actually built on a Google product called Notebook LM. You may have heard about it, or maybe you have not, heard about it. This is one of those AI products that people are using. If you have a Gmail account, you can probably go ahead and sign up for it. But what this is doing is that I created a chat opportunity for you where you can actually chat with my podcasts, right? You can ask a question here, and maybe you listen to an episode or a couple of episodes, you subscribe to the channel, you want to understand a little bit deeper or get, shorter answers and pull the information from the episodes that are relevant to you, right? So this isn't medical advice. It requires you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and actually allow me to verify that you have actually subscribed, right? So this is the purpose of the link. So for example, here I'm going to say, is the calcium score of 100 good or bad, right? And so let's see what the system says. And I deliberately giving it a very vague kind of question, right? So you could see here is that it actually tells you where in the podcast you could find information, what this information says, and a lot of other stuff around this. Now, it's not going to calculate, what your specific situation is. It's going to kind of give you a general understanding of how to think about where in the episode, what episode things are actually being discussed, right? And here you can even ask at what place in the episode are the calcium scores discussed. Let's see if the system pulls it out so that you can just dial in and go exactly to the place. And here is just the transcript, right? And it kind of gives you this information. And so you can sort through this. You could see exactly what was said, word by word in the transcript. You can also say, is the LDL elevation bad for me? Now, the system doesn't know you. This is AI. And like I said, we're not really using this. You're not using this for medical assessment, because can't really give you medical advice here. But this is another episode that I did with one of the doctors on the show, Dr. Ernie Schaefer. And it's a great episode. It began our LDL discussion. And so you could kind of get the gist of these episodes, the points, and then, it will take you to another episodes where you can find more information. And you can always request a transcript for the episode and, load it into anything you want to load it into, and, have it give you a summary. So with that, I'm going to bid you goodbye. Hopefully this Statin Overprescribing Solution, How to Age-Proof Yourself episode is a beginning of our conversation. It is going to take us into some very interesting discussions. If you have any questions, feel free to post comments. You can comment on YouTube. You can comment on various podcast platforms. You can send me a message through Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter, whatever you're on. It's all good. And I'm specifically interested in knowing what specifically you feel is kind of missing in a discussion that you'd like to learn more about. And, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that gives you access to this notebook LM, which you can use for your own purposes. Hi to all professionals listening to us today. If you're thinking of launching a cardiometabolic or integrative cardiology program in your practice, we can help. At the Holistic Card Centers, we help docs in practice to expand into hybrid or concierge services. Head out to the show notes and click on the application link. Your intro call is entirely free. Ready to schedule a practice review? Use code DOC10 for 10% off our Practice Power Hour 16 minutes coaching session. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to Own Your Heart Health with Dr. Regina Druz. This podcast is powered by Holistic Card Centers. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. To learn more about our services, visit holisticcardcenters.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link is in the show notes. See you next week.